Tashtilik, you're watching Tibet This Week, a weekly feature in English that provides a preview of this week's news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Central Tibetan Administration. Today's headlines. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, I am perfectly healthy and hopeful of reuniting with the Tibetans inside Tibet soon. Tibet Policy Institute organizes conference on Tibet, India and the Himalaya. Munkot Tibetan settlement becomes the first in South India to sign land lease agreement. New representative takes charge of the Office of Tibet, South Africa. Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C. holds reception for Chinese Tibet supporters. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says Tibetans inside Tibet will be blessed with the Kalachakra initiation. Addressing a group of Tibetan pilgrims from Tibet at Drebung Monastery in Munkot on the sidelines of the Emery Tibet Symposium, His Holiness the Dalai Lama addressed the concerns of many Tibetans with regard to the deteriorating political situation inside Tibet and the Tibetan people's long-standing aspiration to see His Holiness return to Tibet. His Holiness said that the fact that Tibet has been able to survive in the confines of the world even today is solely because of the remarkable determination of the Tibetan people. His Holiness urged the Tibetans inside Tibet not to be demoralized by the critical political situation. While addressing the aspirations of Tibetans inside Tibet to see His Holiness the Dalai Lama return to Tibet, His Holiness said that although he is 81 years old now, he is perfectly healthy and hopeful of being able to reunite with the Tibetans inside Tibet very soon in a few years' time. On Tuesday this week, Tibet Policy Institute of Central Tibetan Administration organized a joint conference with a representative of University of Westminster's Center for Study of Democracy, focusing on the topic China, Tibet and the Himalayas. Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Sengge graced the conference and spoke highly of the research initiatives of the Tibet Policy Institute and praised the researchers for their work in informing and educating the different aspects of the people around the world on Tibet and its ancient historical facts. The conference featured 3 plenary sessions, starting with Professor Dipesh Anand on the issue of Tibet, China and Himalaya, and Dr. Nitasha Kaul on the democracy and current issue in Bhutan, followed by research paper presentation by the Tibet Policy Institute researchers Dr. Tenzin Dese, Dr. Tenzin Tsudim, Dr. Rinzi Doje, Sherab Yose and Dechen Pelmo. The conference was attended by the dignitaries of the Central Tibetan Administration, staff and members of the various Tibetan non-governmental organizations in Dharamsala. For the first time in Tibetan exile history, a land lease agreement was signed between the Government of India, represented by Mr. S.S. Nukul, District Commissioner of Karwar, and Mr. Kamathundrup, Settlement Officer of Doguling Tibetan Settlement, Munkot, representing the Central Tibetan Relief Committee. The signing of the agreement took place in the presence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Sikyong during the 600th founding anniversary of the Drebung Monastery. The agreement is significant and in tandem with Central Tibetan Administration's 550 strategy, as it ensures the sustenance of the Tibetan settlement in the long run. On Saturday last week, Mr. Ngudrup Doje, the new representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, formally took charge of Office of Tibet, South Africa from outgoing representative Ms. Nangsa Chodron at a brief traditional ceremony. The handing over ceremony took place in the presence of Mr. Sonam Nobu Thakbo, Secretary of Department of Information and International Relations, who was appointed to oversee the handing and taking over of the office. Mr. Ngudrup Doje is the former Secretary of Social and Resource Development Fund of the Department of Finance, Central Tibetan Administration. Ms. Nangsa Chodron has been appointed as the Secretary of Department of Education. The Office of Tibet, based in Washington, D.C., along with the Capital Area Tibetan Association, organized a reception for Chinese Tibet supporters from Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland areas. The supporters include Chinese writers, intellectuals, scholars, democracy activists, and youth organization members. Similar event was held by a group of Chinese democracy activists based in New York and New Jersey to welcome the new representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama at the Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C., Mr. Pemba Tsering, and to revitalize the Sino-Tibetan relations. The Chinese friends expressed their heartfelt respect to His Holiness the Dalai Lama and said that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is not only a leader of the Tibetan people, but also a venerable guide and advisor to the Chinese people. They also explained that middle way approach is not a separatist activist and urged the fellow Chinese to understand the issue of Tibet and seek peaceful resolution to the Tibet issue. The Chinese government has imposed travel restrictions on Tibetans inside Tibet in a bid to block their travel to India to attend the upcoming Kalachakra teaching. Tibetan pilgrims who have already arrived in Nepal and India have been summoned back to their home country. News emanating from Tibet reported that the Chinese government began confiscating passports from Tibetans inside Tibet since November this year. In light of these developments, His Holiness the Dalai Lama addressed the Tibetan pilgrims in New Delhi, advising them not to feel disheartened. His Holiness said that during the Kalachakra initiation, Tibetans inside Tibet whose faith and devotion remain invincible and stands undefeated can pray from inside Tibet. His Holiness said that from the Kalachakra ground, he will keep the Tibetans inside Tibet in his deepest prayers, and that way they can receive the Kalachakra empowerment.
이 모습부터 또 지그래 사투리 지난주 변에 저 말름 겹체 샤송아 아니 지난주 대반에 요함에 버리 어떤 인도 내드네 아니 지난주 별 나라 여대배 가시미마 뭐냐 전에 지금 대바다 덤지 요함에 버리는 게 어디지 His
Holiness further said that there is a substantial number of Chinese Buddhists in mainland China wishing to attend the Kalachakra and that His Holiness will remember them in his prayers. Bihar's Chief Minister Shri Nitish Kumar and other Indian dignitaries received His Holiness the Dalai Lama on his arrival at Patna Airport on Thursday to conduct the Kalachakra initiation in Bodh Gaya. Thousands of Tibetan Buddhists and foreigners flooded the streets of Bodh Gaya to welcome the Tibetan spiritual leader. The 34th Kalachakra initiation, which is scheduled to begin from 2nd to 14th January 2017, is being organized by the Central Tibetan Administration and is expected to draw at least 200,000 devotees from across the world. The 13-day spiritual gathering will be streamed live on Tibet TV's YouTube and Facebook page. The Kalachakra initiation will begin with a ritual preparation on 2nd January and end with a lifelong prayer ceremony on January 14th. That's all for the week. See you next Friday.